And before the class starts, we would felicitate him, first Mr. Joe Winter, and then our another teacher, Mr. Alok Biswas. Clap. So, presentation being over. So, Joe, we have with us our colleague. He's a poet, Bengali poet, must be right, Bengali. Dipankar Sarkar. Joe Winter lives in London, but from 1991 to 2006, he stayed in Calcutta. He wrote for the Statesman. He has written several books of poetry. He has translated poems of Rabindranath Tagore, Jibananda, and some other great writers into English. But teaching is his passion. He has never lost his link with teaching. That's why he loved to talk to you about poetry. So we are grateful to Joe for his coming over to our school to speak to you about poetry. And with us, most of you I think know Alok Biswas, our beloved teacher, our colleague. He is also a great poet, and I would like to ask Dada to tell something else about Joe, because he is a friend of his. So you hear from Mr. Biswas about Joe.
Well, good day friends, good day boys. You may remember me, I had been to this school on several occasions as the mentor of the English medium section. Some of you may still remember me, don't you? Some of you, I don't think all of you are there. And as for my friend, I met him, he came to Calcutta way back in 1994, if I'm not mistaken, 1994. But what brought us together? It is not teaching, but it is poetry that brought us together. And when I met him first, I didn't know that he was a teacher. I met him as a poet, and once a poet, as you know, always a poet. And obviously he's a teacher, he's a schoolmaster in England. He taught for a very long time, and if you read his wonderful autobiography, the first part of Green Box, if I'm not mistaken, and that book will give you glimpses of the kind of person he was, and the kind of struggle, the story of his growing up. But back to what I'm saying, he is here to teach you. As Shruti rightly pointed out, that teaching is his passion. And he is a magical teacher. Way back in 1994, he went to my school and he interacted with the students of my school. And it was an amazing experience. My school was a purely Bengali medium school. In spite of that, most of the students interacted. It was a beautiful, lively, interactive session. Now you are going to see something of that kind of magic he is capable of as a teacher. I did not tell much about the kind of teacher he is. And the moment he will start teaching you, you will get the feel of Mr. Joe Inter as a teacher. And this much I have to tell you. So over to Joe.
Thank you. Now I want to talk about poetry and perhaps give you a little something to remember about what happens in poetry. You know, the mind is an extraordinary thing. We use the mind just to get by, to do ordinary things. It's walking. The mind is always walking, but it's also flying at the same time, because we have an imagination. And always we're using the imagination a little bit. Even when we're doing ordinary things, something is going on in here. And in poetry, the mind is walking and flying absolutely at the same time, and it's a marvelous, marvelous feeling when that happens. Now, I want to start off with a poem a girl wrote in a school when I was teaching, right at the beginning of my teaching career, when I was a young man. And she was 12 years old, and her name was Jacqueline. And it's a small poem, so I'll just write it on the board for you. Straight backs, corporal dictionary, lieutenant, that's the fiction books. Quick, quick, straight backs, stand, the books. Corporal, lieutenant are officers, soldiers who give orders, okay? And they're in the army. So, she is thinking of books, a shelf of books maybe 20 books. And they're just books. They're just still books, but her mind is flying. And suddenly these books are like soldiers, like this. Okay? Lots of them. And her mind sees them as soldiers standing there. And the dictionary is rather important. It's a corporal giving orders. And the fiction books have their own importance. They're lieutenants, another officer. And then suddenly, there's a little more magic. First, she sees the books. Second, she sees the books as soldiers. And third, they're no longer still, they're walking. Quick, quick. Quick, quick. Suddenly, for a second, they're walking, and then suddenly they're still again. And they're soldiers. And then finally, they're just books. Just books. The dream is over. So there has been a journey. Do you understand? A journey. And of the mind. And it's an exciting journey. And it's complete in itself. A little story, a little journey of the mind. Now, saying poetry is interesting. The way you say a poem when you're reading it to other people helps it get over to the minds of the other people. So this one, when you're saying poetry, say it slowly. Now, in a minute, I'm going to see if anyone would like to stand up and say this poem. If you don't want to, that's no problem at all. But I'll say it. Books, lined up, straight backs, corporal dictionary, lieutenants, that's the fiction books. Quick, quick, straight backs, stand, the books. Would anyone like to say it? That's wonderful. Yes. Take your time, don't rush, and I can't hear anything, so loudly. Don't rush. Good?
Books, lined up, straight backs, corporal dictionary, lieutenant, that's the fiction books, quick, quick, straight backs, stand the books.
Very good. Just one thing, remember, when you finish a poem, don't say stand the books. Stand the books, okay? People often do it at the end of the poem. No. And that's excellent. So that is the first poem I wanted to tell you. She wrote another poem, very different. The Lady. It's a short poem, so I'm writing it up again. Thank you, sir. This is a very different atmosphere than this poem. So, the lady, innocently she stands, quietly she stands. Now she fades, walking through the hall. All that see whisper the tales they've heard. Now, what is she? Is she a ghost? Because she's fading, drifting, walking slowly away till you can't see her. Is she real? Is she in a dream? It's a mystery. And there is no answer. There is no one answer. There is no correct answer. It's up to you. You're offered a mystery to think about. So this is another journey of the mind, in which the mind is flying into a mystery, if you like, all sorts of possibilities. And when you say it, I'm going to ask if someone else would like to say it in a minute, get an element of wonder and mystery. Innocently she stands, quietly she stands. Now she fades, walking through the hall. All that see whisper the tales they've heard. Tales, stories, gossip. Was she a lady from 200-300 years ago who maybe had a mysterious end to her life and now she's a ghost? Was she someone who was there 50 years ago, 10 years ago in that house? Who knows? Who knows? Who would like to say it? Take your time, nice and slow, and make sure I can hear.
The lady. Innocently she stands. Quietly she stands. Now she fades, walking through the hall. All that see whisper the tales they have heard.
I love the way you said whisper the tales. That's lovely, the tales. All these exciting things. Good. And I asked them to write about a storm, either in poetry or in descriptive prose. And I saw that she was fighting with her material, by which I mean she was sitting there, she was not only concentrating, there was like a fight in her head, and gradually she wrote. And then she brought the poem up to my desk. Now, often in a poem, as you know, often in a poem, there's a metaphor, a picture in the mind. So this storm is both a storm in the sky that's slowly beginning to happen. The air is a little darker, the rumblings, little bit of thunder and so on, and only at the very end does the rain really come down. You have to wait. But at the same time, something else is happening. It's not a storm as of weather, it's a storm of anger of a person. There is a person slowly building up anger, and other people can see and they're a bit worried. You understand?
Yes.
What's going to happen?
Yes.
Is he going to explode, or is it a she? Is she going to start screaming and shouting? And finally, she lets it all out. Terrible anger. She's shouting and screaming and screeching, whatever it is. Both these things, the storm of thunder and rain and the storm of a person being angry, are happening at one and the same time. Because this is another way that poetry can work. You have to travel down two paths at the same time. I will read it to you. Now, the first line has the word burdened in it. I'm sure you know what that means. If you're burdened with something, you have a heavy load, as if on your back. Okay, it's a beautiful first line, by the way. Storm. It arrived in the west, burdened with anger, but remained quiet at first. Then it whispered, low and mournful, eyes turned upwards, and knowing glances were made. Its anger grew worse and it made it known. It needed space to console itself. The sun turned in and gave it its way. Engulfing the sky, it turned it black and continued its raging. Then suddenly it let loose and emptied every hidden feeling on the streets. And isn't that fantastic? Because it's both a storm there and someone getting angry at the same time. So there's another example of how poetry works. This girl who wrote this poem was quite exceptional. I'll be reading two more of her poems. She was actually Afro-Caribbean. Her parents had come from Jamaica and settled in England. She was one of the very best writers in schools that I've ever come across. Yes, I'll go right on to the next poem of hers, I think. Now what happened here was, Orchid knew someone who had died. It was the father of the family who lived next door to her family. And she'd known them for many years, and the families were very close, and they used to borrow and lend tea and sugar and that sort of thing. And then the father of the family died, and she found that she wanted to write a poem about it. And in this poem, there's a most interesting idea about life. The life being like something that's given to you and you owe a debt. A rin is right?
Yeah.
You owe a debt for that life. How do you pay that debt? And when you've paid it, in a way there is a receipt. You know, if you buy something, you get a receipt. You understand that?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so how do you pay the debt? Listen carefully to this. The lights of day appeared, and there is a debt to pay, the debt of being alive. Afternoon at last. Even the sun looks weary, and almost unnoticed it sinks deeper, deeper. Another portion of the debt is paid, and the debtor looks homeward. Behind bricks they comfort each other with word and action. Behind bricks they torment each other. But no matter how great a debt, one day it will be paid. When one has paid his last debt, and his feet turn homewards for the last time, and his last words are spoken, they all stand and stare. Stare if they must, but why with sadder eyes? Why the carefully chosen words? This debtor has now received his receipt. He is now content and at ease. He can now live, live, live. So, what a beautiful idea it is. Now, I must have read hundreds, maybe thousands of poems about death. Some of them very famous. But I never came across this idea before. Very simple idea, and yet very deep. If you pay your debt by dying, finally, and then you can live, presumably, in an afterlife, whatever religion you're in. And the receipt is the fact that the people who are still alive, standing around your body, say the right kind of thing, they look sad, they kind of make it clear somehow that it's a very important event in their lives, and that is the receipt. Now I'll read it once more. I find it a beautiful poem. And there's a very strong bit in it at one point about the bricks, where they comfort each other and torment each other. It happens in all families. In all families. All right. The lights of day appeared, that is being born, of course. The lights of day appeared. And there's a debt to pay. The debt of being alive. Afternoon at last. Even the sun looks weary, and almost unnoticed it sinks deeper, deeper. Another portion of the debt is paid, and the debtor looks homeward. Behind bricks they comfort each other with word and action. Behind bricks they torment each other. But no matter how great a debt, one day it will be paid. When one has paid his last debt, now his debt, when one has paid his last debt, and his feet turn homewards for the last time, and his last words are spoken, they all stand and stare. Stare if they must. But why with sadder eyes? Why the carefully chosen words? This debtor has now received his receipt. He is now content and at ease. He can now live, live, live. You know, she wrote this poem all in one sentence, just full stop at the end. That is bad punctuation if it's prose, but in poetry you can bend the rules, you can change the rules. It's perfectly okay. You can make up words. You can do an awful lot of things. You have a freedom. All right, that is 2 poems of Orchid. I'll come back to one more later. So now we've had the poem about the books, where you see 2 different things, the books and the soldiers suddenly moving quickly and then not. And we've had the mysterious lady who may be a ghost, who may be part of a dream, who may be real, who may not be real. And we've had the storm, where there's a person being angry, and a storm building up to its own sort of weather anchor. And now we've had the poem about life and death, which has a single idea going through it. And what they all have in common is that they all have imaginative ideas, and they all finish. So at the end, there's nothing more to say. There's nothing more to say. When a poem finishes, it's as if there is a silence in the universe for a few seconds, and you take it in. All right. Now, so far, they've all been by girls. And I have to admit that I found as a teacher that on the whole, girls wrote better poetry than boys. I had wonderful poems from boys, and I'm going to do one, speak one in a minute. I may put it on the board actually. And it's not that girls are better with words, but girls are often more in touch with their experience. Boys are often showing off a little, trying too hard, whatever it is. Girls are sometimes more balanced, and I often think if only girls, when they grow up and become women, would carry on their writing. Some do, but all too many don't. And whatever else they're doing, they should do that. All right. Now this is by a boy, and he was a difficult boy to teach. He was about 14, and he was, you may not believe this, but in British schools, there's often great problems of discipline. We have disturbed children who don't really want to be at school, and they make great problems for the other kids, and they make great problems for the teachers. And this boy, Kimball, he was very impatient. He was very clever, very impatient. So he'd go past someone, he'd push all the books to the floor, this sort of thing. He'd fool around. But he was a clever boy. Now, where are we? 66. Once I put silence on the board. This was the subject for them to write about. And he started off his poem, "I hate silence most of all. Wherever it is, I yell, scream and call." And this was Kimball. It was quite funny actually. He wanted a war against silence because he was like this. He didn't like silence, but just sometimes he did. So I put war and peace, 2 words, and I said choose one of them or use both if you like in the same poem. And I sort of thought that he would choose peace and complain about it and fight against it in his writing, like he did for silence. But he sat there writing, and then he came up to the desk and put his poem on. And this is what he wrote. It'll take me a little time to write it, but I want you to see this. This boy, who always created a lot of trouble, gave me hell, really. He came up and he put this poem on my desk, and I'll never forget it. And I read it. Peace is a walk by the stream in summer, with only the... is what you're saying more important than this? Peace is a walk by the stream in summer with only the birds. Peace can't be touched. only to be enjoyed but never held. Peace is peace, and only that. Peace cannot be seen or heard, for if it could, peace would be no more. To know but not to know, for peace is an essence, a secret, beautiful essence. And the essence is peace. It's such a beautiful thing. And that this boy, of all boys, should do it astonished me. And yet it didn't astonish me, because he was clever, and all of us have two sides to us. We have a slightly chaotic side, and we have a more sensible side. And this is what happened when he let his more sensible side come out. And I absolutely love this poem. I don't even really understand it, and yet I do in a way. You can't pick it up, it's abstract. You can't fully grasp it. If you could, it wouldn't exist. It's something beyond. It's something beyond. Like many concepts in various philosophies and religions. So, if anyone would like to say this, I'd be very happy. Perhaps someone... Yes? Nice, slowly and clearly, okay? Do you want to take your mask down while you're saying? When you're ready, nice and slow and clear.
Peace is a walk by the stream, in summer with only the birds. Peace can be touched, only to be enjoyed but never held. Peace is peace, and only that. Peace cannot be seen or heard, for if it could, peace would be no more. To know but not to know, for peace is an essence, a secret, beautiful essence, and the essence is peace.
Nicely done. Thank you. So, notice also the repetition. How many times does peace come out? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And repetition is a big part of poetry. Often, as you know, you have a poem where the same line happens at the end of the poem or at the end of each verse. It's called a refrain. That's a kind of repetition also. But it mustn't be overdone. Here it's done just beautifully. Not too much repetition, but enough for it to permeate your mind, to go right into it, to give it the sense of peace. See? Peace has happened. So, my image was huge, my voice a whisper, a howling whisper, unseen but felt. I know now why I was destroyed, to be created into the wind, the howling wind. It's a strange idea, it's most interesting. Who would like to say this last verse?
Sir, please, sir.
It was huge. My voice a whisper, a howling whisper, unseen but felt. I know now why I was destroyed, to be created into the wind, the howling wind.
Now, last line again. You said to be created into the wind, not howling. The howling wind! Finish strongly. Do the last line again. To be
created in the wind.
No, say the howling wind strongly. Like this. To be created into the wind. The howling wind.
The howling wind.
Very good. People everywhere. 1,000 beings. Their faces portray nothing. Expressionless. Blanketed in their personal affairs. They drift into their chosen way of life. Eyes that see, but become blind. Hearts that feel, but soon turn to stone. Minds that store, but eventually throw out their stock when viewed under light. But my mind screams for help. I carry the past and make supports for the future. For me, there is no present. Every forthcoming second is the future, which turns into a wasted or cherished memory. Decisions to make every minute, every hour. I spend my most treasured hours bent over my shaft in the big machine called life, and my heart cries out for freedom. But if I had complete freedom, could I endure it? The self-centered, blank-faced forms are a great part of life, my life. They cause me to hate. They cause me to love. They create situations which make me think and consider. I can't teach children drawing. So she starts off saying, their faces show nothing. They don't know what they're thinking. Their faces show nothing, portray nothing, expressionless. Then a wonderful couple of lines. This couple of lines, these two lines, I've remembered all my life. How do you make a decision in life? You half make it, and it half happens by accident, you know? Blanketed in their personal affairs, they drift into their chosen way of life. You're blanketed. You can't see properly because you're thinking too much about certain things to do with you. You can't get a clear perspective. They drift into their chosen way of life. They choose it, and also they drift into it. It's true for so many things. Then this one little moment, eyes that see, that become blind, hearts that feel, that soon turn to stone. It's a beautiful way of expressing the way people can change, and change for the worse. Minds that store, but eventually throw out their stock when viewed under light. Thoughts are going to the mind, knowledge is going to the mind, then you forget some of it, and you don't want to know it. Everything's changing. Then there's a wonderful bit about time. We just had a poem about time. There are 3 lines, or 4 or 5 lines here on time. The past, present, and future. It's extraordinary what she says. I carry the past and make supports for the future. For me, there is no present. Because what happens to the present? It's immediately going into the past. It comes from the future and goes into the past. You understand? No present. Every forthcoming second is the future which turns into a wasted or cherished memory. And then about always making decisions about the things, decisions to make every minute, every hour. And then finally, she says these self-centered, blank-faced forms and expressionless, they're a great part of life, my life. But she finds a good thing to say about them. They cause me to hate, they cause me to love, they create situations which make me think and consider, and they give her what she needs to make her mind work. We have to have other people to think about, to understand. Right, now,
Translation please. Take your call.
I know.
So, another comma, translation. Remove the comma, sir.
I can't. How stupid am I? How stupid am I? I tried to drink this. Cool Peshiboka. Because I'm not used to this. And I thought maybe something happened. That is the most stupid thing you can imagine. Now, this is a poem about the Jalandhar River. When I came to Kolkata, the first time I've been in India, it was the first time I've been out of Europe. And this poem Is it meant to be partly a song, partly a dream, partly a statement? You will see. Jollonby River, and Northern Chomanagar. Jollonby, Jollonby, lingering song singer, bringer of fortunes along your brown gardens, sing in your kingdoms. In your strong kindliness, sing in the language of morning and evening, of land-parting promise, of wealth in your wandering. Jollonby, changeling of stone pit and sea. Where does the tune come from? What is the reasoning, Jollonby, that in a space of near nothingness, only the sea sucking water from mountains, there is a oneness, and there is a Godhead. Jollonby, Jollonby, there is no knowing why. Songs have no reason. The singing is all. Jollonby, princely of New Shiva's colony, so in the English tongue, village of kingliness. Here in the lingering road is the lemon tree. Here is the family, tough as banana leaf. Here is the final point to the day's question, held in the work and rest, answering all. Under a lychee tree, poets were gathering, first day of worship, to christen the century. Shiva, destroyer, creator, shall there be more of the nothingness from the west side? No, the song was breathed in the Bengali tongue, touching the fineness of a new world. Jollonby, dream singer of Shiva's colony, carrying the birth of the moon to far distances, carry the dream song of poets who came here into the day of the far distant future. Through all the question and answering, sing with the knowledge that sleeps upon one village road. Singers of songs of art, doing what rivers do, carrying the note of a natural kindliness. Do you know your own Welsh? Jollonby, Jollonby, take my heart's portraits past morning and evening, night and the open sea, out to where nothing is. Still by this village road, still on this street. Thank you.